JP. I have had
I know.
such fucking idiocy like on my timeline and
people who aren't
as
going.
Well. Oh,
I might add, all those people who are like, shut up and have fun. This is a great card. None of them are fucking going. Like, very few of them.
Not even that. It's more like, because I saw that from like notable people, and it's like, hang on, I don't being like, oh, it's only the Brits who are wound up. Yeah, the Brits who are 80,000 of us going to this, and also the Brits who understands the importance of Wembley, and you know that it's going to be it's a gigantic thing to get in Wembley in the first place, and it's not something that should be taken for granted. I got told today, JP, that apparently it's just they'll be back at Wembley some other time, so the show's not even that important. It's a good little card, JP, is what I've been told over and over this weekend. I just don't think we can't talk all in without talking Dynamite this week. But like this week's Dynamite just shone a real. If the stuff today didn't help, Dynamite shone a real light on where we are right now, JP, with what's going on and what this card like. Just look at that image. Look at those matches. Is that the biggest show of all time? Just looking at it, like, of course it's not. Add Joe and Punk to it, fair enough. But like, I think where were we on Spotlight? So we've gone from anger, JP, to Spotlight. We were at acceptance. I feel like this Dynamite on Wednesday, and don't get me wrong, I was in our Discord almost wishing for it not to end because we were all having such a good time dunking on it. We're just laughing now. Just sounded funny. Like, I'm not even getting wound up by the Americans anymore. I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, okay. For some reason, you think Kenny Omega, who according to the Observer today, by the way, was supposed to work that Bryan Danielson at All In, allegedly can't work a singles match anymore because of his poor neck. Despite the fact that 6 days later, he might be able to do it at all out. No, he's too injured. And no, this is a good card. And no, what are they whining about? I'm always tuning that out now, JP. Just to laugh at the thing. And this week's Dynamite, like I was literally, and there were multiple people. I was gonna start a £500 Patreon tier just for people to get to watch you live watching it, because I bet your reactions live to how they got to this card on Dynamite would have been some fucking viewing. Because good lord, are there problems in AEW right now? And yeah, I think this entire period and this week's Dynamite especially is shining a real light on it.
It was like, what are the laziest ways we can get to these matches that shouldn't be existing in the first place? So it's an unholy combination of terrible, terrible booking leading to bad matches that shouldn't exist at all. So no one's happy with it. And like, I've been very, very public when we've been talking about this, about the real concerns about the booking. And it is just like, everything is shining like a light onto this as well. And it's like the one thing we said that they shouldn't do is kind of look at the ticket sales. Aren't they great? Now we don't need to deliver on it. And it is like they've done that. They've just given it zero forethought. And they're throwing shit up against a wall, and none of it doesn't even feel like it's canon. I feel like it feels like being what I imagine in that Australian crowd when they went over. Was it called global warming or something like that? Was that the event that they ran there?
That was it.
Massive crowd, no meaning to it. And so it's just like, okay, so we're learning lessons from the worst aspects of WWE and about how they treat audiences. Like, you're half expecting everyone, the British, to lose on this card, because that would be the other kind of like very much shitty WWE booking trope that they used to always go with. But yeah, you go talk about Dynamite, just the sheer laziness of like the Jim Ross Kenny Omega pre-tape was just fucking nonsense. Absolute fucking nonsense. And he said it was a good bit of business. And in my mind I went, that's why your contract shouldn't be renewed come September. Because if that's your instincts at this stage of the game, Jim, you're not a help, you're a hindrance to it. But it was bullshit. And then
people thought that was good. I saw people say that was good. Like, oh, there you go. Now there's a reason for the match. Is there? Like somebody just said before, it's Russo booking. Like, it's the week before Wembley, and it's like, I don't know, randomly, Juice Robinson and Jay White are going to run in and do an attack. And that's the thing when we get into the show. Like, how many times did that happen during the night? Ospreay, same thing with Jericho, a better angle, but basically the same idea. Adam Cole did the fake out on the super kick. FTR did the fake out at the end of the night with the Young Bucks. It was repetitive too. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
But like literally, we can get into all the other reasons the show was bad. But they had like 9 of basically the same break glass in case of emergency plan to set up all these matches. That is not storytelling. That's not good booking. Like, I can't believe people can watch these things and think good. Like, I think the Omega one, if we stay there for a sec, that's the best example. Because that thing, like, it had every element it had. And not interested Kenny Omega. And if he was interested, then they should have redone it because he was that bad. Like, he was treating it like it was a joke. His acting was woeful, and it's never good at the best of times. Jim Ross looked bemused by the whole thing. The set was weird that it was in this empty arena. The running was fucking ridiculous because, again, there's no storyline reason right now why Jay White is getting involved in all of this. Then Takeshita magically appears. Then we go to Hangman Page. Like, it was like watching a sci-fi film. Like, why is Hangman Page all of a sudden by an ambulance? I was like, okay, so this isn't live. Okay, I kind of gathered it was taped. But now there's also another thing taped where Hangman Page is in a different location. And somehow he's got this information before the rest of us. He then proceeds to cut one of the worst promos I've ever seen him cut. Like, he looked completely unconvinced by the whole thing. He's getting his fucking beer out like that's the big fucking story development. Like, the Tumblr nonsense can fuck off. Like, that's not storytelling. Maybe that passes for storytelling these days. That's a nice
shit storytelling.
But you need more substance if you're going to do that stuff. There's no fucking substance here. Fuck off with that shit. That was terrible. And then we flash back to the live arena, and then Don Callis is there again to do basically the same angle with Chris Jericho. Seconds later. Like, if that doesn't encapsulate what is so wrong with Tony Khan's booking in general, never mind on the route to his biggest show ever, I don't know what is, JP. There's like 4 or 5 amateur hour things there you can call on that just show what a fucking shit show this entire thing is.
And maybe I'm wrong on this. I'd led to believe that there were internal hires, or they'd made hires recently, and part of the job was, maybe I'm under the wrong illusion, was to kind of fix out these kind of tropes. And that wasn't the fucking case, because they opened with a match. Then we had all the Blackpool Combat Club stuff and Eddie Kingston running back in just to add on to it, just another one kind of like in there, and just we're going to have this big multi-person match. Then you get the Kenny Omega angle. Then you get the Callis, Jericho, Ospreay stuff afterwards. It's fucking terrible. Like, I was watching this.
TNA.
It is TNA. That's this whole pay-per-view build and everything around it screams TNA. And TNA was a company as well that took its audience for granted over here, because and it was amazing to fucking shoot them. I don't know what the phrase is, but just to fuck this up so badly like that. And that's what they've done here. They've fucked it up. These are the most lazy of angles, all being told a week before the show, a show that you had announced a couple of months ago and clearly hadn't given it any thought because of what? Blood and guts, endless fucking tournaments, lazy fucking multi-person matches. I suspect we're going to end up the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn versus the House of Black, which would make it, am I right in thinking on that? Would that be 3 trios matches that we've got on this card? And we've got a big multi-person, multi-women's match. It's just like, we don't get proper singles matches. It's so fucking under-delivered, this.
We'll crunch the numbers. Like, this is, again, this pay-per-view is, I feel like I have to say it, despite it's obvious to every one of our listeners. It's obvious to us. You're not making a fucking intelligent point by saying it. All these wrestlers are good. When they get in the ring, they're going to have good matches. All the fans are going to be amazing. Going to be 80,000 British fans in an arena. Yeah. We know. That part is going to get dealt with. The bit that's not going to get dealt with is it's this lazy booking. It's the fact that the show is a pretty good AEW pay-per-view. If this was a full gear, you'd be like, it's all right. Might be even on the low end of that. Like I say, we'll crunch the numbers. And was looking at the fact that, like, this is the first AEW pay-per-view with only 2 top line singles, or 3, isn't it? 3 altogether. Once Joe and Punk gets out the top line singles matches, like one of a rare couple. You always get more than this. You look at Kenny Omega. We looked at the numbers on him. Like, he's almost always involved on AEW pay-per-views, either in a title match, even if it's the trios title, or he's involved in a big time singles match. Like, that's kind of how, or a tag team match. That's how Kenny's booked. Like, the fact that he's in a throwaway 6-man is unique, and they're doing it on their biggest show of all time. Like you say, the fact that, you know, it was this Dynamite was like all the things we suspected were happening coming true. Like the idea that Eddie Kingston was going to come back to AEW. No, we're not going to get Eddie Kingston versus Moxley. And you can argue, you can go, oh, well, you know, there's not enough time to set that up now. No, they've known about this show for 6 months. Like, you can plot these things so that it would make sense for Eddie Kingston to return and set that match up. Instead, fucking, and I don't share the excitement a lot of people have got, like, for this idea that, like, we're going to get our own Stadium Stampede. Like, people forgot what Stadium Stampede was. Stadium Stampede was empty arena, like, pandemic era stuff. And then the second one took place on a field, and then the finish took place in the ring. Like, it isn't one of them. You know what it is, JP? They're probably going to do an Anarchy in the Arena.
Yeah.
And if anything proved they've had no planning or forethought or concrete, like, plan to get to this match, it's that they just fucking did want a Double or Nothing. Like, you can call it something else, but they're just doing another Anarchy in the Arena match 3 months later. Nobody said they had to do that at Double or Nothing. If you really wanted to want to do one of these at Wembley, you hold off and you do it. And that tells me 3 months ago they didn't know this was coming. 3 months ago they didn't know half these matches were happening. It's a fucking shit show, JP. It's unbelievable.
And to add a point from that, there's enough history of Eddie Kingston and John Moxley in AEW, which is the key point, before I get some fucking golden lovers nonce on my bloody case. But, like, seriously, there is, like, enough history where Eddie Kingston could deliver a promo and just talk about how John Moxley, how he's been over the last few months with Blackpool Combat Club. And you get a singles match and it would heat it up. Just them two in a ring cutting a promo. And I think immediately you'd have it. But that's not even on the thought. The thought is probably, we'll do that all out. We'll do that here. And it's like saving it to be shown in a country which, imagine how many combined shows AEW will have to run to reach the attendance of what they're going to do in one day at Wembley. It's going to take the guts of, like, a fucking couple of months, I think, to get to that point. Because we're talking at the minute, they're doing 3,000-4,000 kind of most weeks. Not great bang up numbers. So there's no way they're going to get to do it. They have fucked this. And there's no nice way of saying it. They fucked it. And the booking has been fucking awful. And this should be a wake-up call. And there's a story I saw out, I talked about it in the Wednesday Night News, where there's a lot of the wrestlers apparently aren't happy with the build. Why don't you say something? When you're knocking about with him and he's your mate, why isn't anyone saying this to him?
Because everyone's looking after themselves. Because that's what this is.
Are.
It's become Game of Thrones, JP. Like, I'm literally seeing people on Twitter cheering for their favorite wrestler to win the backstage politics game. Like, you know, the story was in the Observer today about apparently Kenny and Bryan Danielson was going to happen. And people are punching the air going, oh, well, Kenny won the backstage battle against Punk to get the match that he wanted. Like, that's the world we're in. The reason this is, we're going to go next Sunday. We're going to see all our friends, our listeners. We're going to have a lovely day. We're going to have a fun time at the venue. We're going to have a fun little wrestling show. But we're going to be picking the bones as to why this was not the big, deserving of being the biggest wrestling show of all time, or meeting that spectacle for, like, months to come. Because I think the key is in there. The key is in those little bits of stories you're hearing. The fucking Young Bucks are trying to get the mates on the show. CM Punk is trying to get whatever CM Punk's 12 feuds are going on right now, including one. Apparently, he's trying to get started with MJF by making himself the real world champion. That apparently, and I'm not reporting this, but based on things that you can stick together, MJF isn't really up for. So that's happening with no quality control. You've got fucking Kenny Omega wanting to do this law with Kota Ibushi and whatever the fuck he's doing on the show. He's also, I mean, credit to him, I suppose I'll say, if he wants to work Bryan Danielson, that's more the Kenny Omega I want to hear about. You've got, I honestly think the reason, and we got this announced this week, like we said before, Jericho and Ospreay is happening, it's because Jericho got in there first. Jericho was like, I want Ospreay on that show. Yeah. And Tony Khan doesn't tell Chris Jericho no. So that was it. That's the only reason. I don't, like you've been saying, Ospreay Omega's not coming at Wrestle Kingdom. It's not because of New Japan. It's happening because Jericho got dibs. and Tony Khan's scared of him as well, and he's trying to please all these quarters of the locker room at the same time, and they're all fucking fighting against each other to get to get whatever spot they want for whatever reason on this show, and the result is this shit show that appears to have been ripped up 4 or 5 times. Whatever plans they had were bad plans or got ripped up or messed up. There's been a couple of injuries, Bryan Danielson and Jamie Hayter. They've got a fucking gigantic roster, maybe the best of all time. That holds no water either. What's happened, JP, is it's a fucking sloppy shop backstage, as we were talking about on Spotlight. And we are seeing the results of that sloppy shop, not only in all the CM Punk salacious stories we talked about last week, but in this card right in front of us on the biggest day in AEW's ever existence. We're seeing it now played out right in front of our eyes.
And we're seeing it on the TV. My big fear with this, mentioned it on Spotlight last week, was that this bleeds into the TV, and it has. And the way it bleeds into the TV is you never deliver on the things you could deliver, the stuff that actually would get people interested. Interesting matchups. We've got virtually none of those because I'm in the minority. That main event doesn't do anything for me. It never really has because it's not my kind of storyline. Now I get that, but that's like, it feels like so much of the show is kind of hung on that. And there was a thing from the Discord as well. I want to say it was, somebody had said about the idea that the wrestlers had very much viewed this as this should be like PWG. And so it's come in, fuck about, get incredibly well paid and do like stuff for their mates. And this is the thing that I'm kind of hating with this, because it plays into all of the worst aspects of a terrible manager, a terrible like boss in Tony Khan in terms of any discipline, terrible booking leading to a terrible card, and it is a terrible card because it's so fucking lazy
for the occasion.
For the occasion, yeah, because this is, as we've already said, like this is going to be like at least the third most attended show of all time. Probably the second. Yeah, that's it. And I'm being fucking bashful by not saying number one, which I don't know what qualifies for biggest show in wrestling history if you've got the most amount of people who weren't forced at gunpoint to attend a show. And I don't even know. I'm assuming a few of these lads behind me were forced to go and watch Jimmy Londos wrestle back in the day as well. And then you've got wrestlers who are just going completely off script, or the stuff they're suggesting isn't going to grow anything, which when you consider that you've just signed 3 of your EVPs back into kind of management positions, like why isn't Kenny, I don't understand, why isn't Kenny Omega busting a gut to wrestle a meaningful singles match on here? Like a meaningful one, which I'd fucking bite my arm off for Takeshita. I wouldn't have said that 2 months ago. I'd have gone, no chance. That's something you do at All Out or Full Gear. You do a proper, like, kind of dream Kenny match here. Not going to deliver on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you're wearing, sat there in your pajamas with, fucking wrestling teddy bears going, yeah, this is great watching that at midday on your couch in bloody Florida, then, yeah, I'm sure it's all a fucking giggle. But they're never going to draw this number again, because I'm also convinced of this, that a lot of the fans who are coming, they're like fly-in fans. It's the hardcore fans who are going to go to this. And how many of them are going to be burnt off by saying, well, the next time they come back, I have no faith that the card is going to live up to the kind of attendance and, frankly, the expense of traveling over to London through a fucking train strike, through a cost of living crisis here as well. Like, this is a lot of people's summer holiday. Effectively, you bypass summer holiday to get really good tickets for this. And what are we being fed? One match that kind of has had at least something, I say, a long build, and even that's about 6 weeks. A tag match, which, one of them has done his best to fucking jeopardize that in the meantime. And a lot of other stuff, which is fucking lazy, meaningless, or we've seen it before, or requires canon from other companies and storylines that are frankly played out years ago, and stuff like this. Like it's fucking tedious, and that's where we are.
That's where we are. And like I say, we're past, anger, acceptance, like laughing at it, like maybe it's the phase we're in. Like, I was watching this Dynamite, just like, this was the worst Dynamite maybe ever for me. Like, I saw people who genuinely say they enjoyed it. like who thought it was a good show. Like, there's a fair amount of people who have that opinion on the show. I don't know how you possibly could watching this show. Like,
Trolls.
maybe you just I think people do believe it, and people do believe this was, it was a hot show to get booking going. I think we all agree, where massively went wrong on that on the Leatherface thing. I can't think of any redeeming thing. The only thing I'd only slightly push back on, I think we just slightly disagree on it. I don't even feel strongly on it. That called an MJF. Like, I thought I liked their segment. I think MJF, probably could have done, with some new material. I heard Joe Landa talk about that on his update this week. And he was right in saying that, but I thought if the one thing MJF did do was sell the occasion, that it was Wembley, that it was important, that this match was important. Adam Cole did the same thing. They both talked it up to the point where maybe it was a bit repetitive. Maybe the backstage segment was pretty fucking shite, but at least they sold it. I was like, you know what? Like, that's the thing that the people who keep coming at us in the YouTube comments or on my Twitter keep saying, well, this is one of the best built stories of all time. I wouldn't go that far, but it has been built and there is investment there and people are going to love it on the night. But that's the only good thing I can say about this week's Dynamite. Like, that was it. Everything else was just rushed angles, panic booking, repetitive stuff, and a booker who's lost control. I think is what we've got to say, really, and that's all you can say about it. Like Connor says here, didn't even enjoy Jeff.
Yeah.
Same
here.
How bad was that? Like, what are the? I know it's a bad Dynamite when Tony Khan's not defending it. He was trying to bring up the charity aspect of it, and fair enough. Credit for the fact that they are giving a lot to the it's the Hawaii relief, isn't it? They're doing a lovely thing there, and the money they made off the Leatherface thing, cool, good, but that was that was WWE-esque. That was like the Miz should have been involved, the Fiend should have been involved. Like, none of us watched Dynamite for that, Never mind the other problems.
Yeah, it was kind of more reminiscent of the zombie shit they did when they had a sponsorship, didn't they? With I don't even know if it was a film or something along those lines, and they played all that zombie stuff. It was, I mean, I had no expectations. I'd read that it was absolutely terrible. I watched it, and then I thought, like, this is the kind of stuff where, all right, the idea that you've given this money to charity, the charity itself, good. I don't like Children in Need is a good charity. I will never watch Children in Need because it's some of the worst television I can ever think of. And I've got zero interest in watching a fucking second of it. I really have. Even comic relief, I can't be asked. But the idea of the charity stuff is kind of fine with. That's that being the redeeming feature from it. And it's just like, is this the week to put it on? Like, I know the game is coming out on the 18th, but it showed where, like, you think of...
Do you know what next week's show is? Fighter Fest. You know that joke that was out of date the day AEW launched and named the show Fighter Fest? They're doing it again 4 years later. People have forgotten even what the reference is. What are they doing? Why now? Why right before Wembley? Like, again, we're hearing murmurings, that they're going to really go for it next week's Dynamite, but it's going to be too late, as we keep saying. Dynamite's, positive story here. Rory says Dynamite's going to be on ITV 9 p.m. Fridays for the next 2 weeks. That'll help. Fortunately, Collision won't air until after All In, so that's not really going to help. Not that anybody watches that in America either. We'll get into that in a minute. But, like, I was going to say quickly, JP, like, the other thing of this Dynamite, like, we ran out of time to really even talk about, like, the basics that they're getting wrong at the minute. But, like, just look at the the Sting feud, like, and the Joker thing. That was fucking terrible. Like, he should have been told. I don't care. Again, it's like the Kenny Omega thing. If it's his idea, tell him no. His idea is bad. That was a bad idea. But that wasn't even the worst part of that time, because that match I'm kind of into. I thought Swerve and, AR Fox have done a great job building that match up. You know why they did a great job building that match up, JP? Because they beat the fuck out of Nick Wayne. And I was really excited for, well, Nick Wayne's on the shelf and Sting and Darby are going to get revenge for him. Nick Wayne was just on Dynamite having a match. He was fine.
Yep.
He's fine. He's teaming with Darby Allin. Like, there's a disconnect there, isn't there, between, like, that story being told properly? Why is he not in the match if he's on Dynamite? It's basic stuff, mate. They've completely lost it. Like, we're gonna be the post right now. We're just talking about the show, but, like, after the show, big conversations to be had about where AEW is, where they're going, and, like, what Tony Khan can do to get back a hold of it. Because based on this Dynamite, it's not happening anytime soon.